next point. Actually, we wanted to bring up something before, which was Jeffrey Rubenstein, who we interviewed as well. And you actually answered the question. So
you sort of answered it in the first.
Yeah, we were
question.
Just going to ask about, teaching Aggadot to children and using his methodology. But
I love Jeffrey Rubenstein's works. I read them very carefully. I've quoted him in my essays on Talmud. I quoted him in my essay on Sukkah. That was his PhD was on tractate Sukkah and the themes and the mysticism associated with Sukkah. Really a special person. My only regret is that we still have not yet met in person, even though we live only a few minutes away from one another.
We had him on our podcast. You can check it out.
Send him my warmest. I will definitely check it out.
Okay.
Very sweet guy.
So anyway, we're going to get to the next question, completely shifting gears here. And we feel like you would probably be the right person to discuss this with. What is your take on Zionism from a religious perspective? As you know, it's quite a polarizing idea among Orthodox Jews, and the approach that many Haredim have taken is to reject it as heresy, citing the Aggadah of the three oaths as support for their argument. To counter that, religious Zionists easily see the modern state of Israel as a clear fulfillment of biblical prophecy, putting politics aside and just strictly focusing on the miraculous existence of Israel. Do you feel that either side is missing the point, and can this divide ever be resolved?
So not the right person to ask that question to. I was raised in a non-Zionistic home, not an anti-Zionistic home. We didn't really go to the Israeli Day Parade. We didn't celebrate Yom Ha'atzmaut, but we were deeply connected to Israel, to Eretz Yisrael. I always call it Eretz Yisrael. I have family members who live in Eretz Yisrael. Zionism is a really central part, and my only pushback is that I don't think it's a polarizing issue anymore. Not in the United States at all. There's no yeshiva community, maybe outside some fringe Hasidic communities, but barely. You see soldiers in Mishpacha magazine and the Ated. They're rooting for Israel no matter the outlets, the yeshiva community. Some of them are even participating in AIPAC. I think everyone has drifted to the middle. I don't think that the fight against Zionism is alive like it was in the 30s and 40s, 50s. I think a lot has changed, particularly over the last 10 years. I think as anti-Zionism within more of the left-wing community, particularly in the Reform community, which has its own complicated history with Zionism, has reemerged. I think the Orthodox community has really become champions of Zionism. Not all of that is a good thing, in my opinion, because I don't like when Zionism and what's at stake with Zionism is diminished into blue and white donuts, into blue and white cookies. Zionism and what we have seen, in the last few generations in the existence of the state of Israel, is more than a parade. It's more than a Twitter battle. It is, to me at least, a massive existential shift in what it means to be a Jew, in the very locus of control. And in a way, I understand anti-Zionists and fervent Zionists more than I understand the people in the middle, because both of those sides are taking Zionism seriously. If you take Zionism seriously and how massive of a claim Zionism is making, then you understand why for many it was anathema to Torah. Aviezer Ravitsky, in his book, which I could pull up because I forgot the title, Messianism, Zionism. I forgot the whole book. I'm going to pull it up right now and tell it to you because it's that good. It's called Messianism, Zionism, and Jewish Radicalism. Is the book to read on Zionism, and he goes through all the opinions there. And the opinions that I've always found most interesting are the opinions of people who take this deeply seriously. Deeply seriously. Rav Yonason Eibschitz said, I believe he writes in Yaros Dvash, and somebody could find this. I read this a long time ago. Inside, maybe I'm misremembering. He said that if Klal Yisrael knew how long the Gullus would have been, then Chalila, he could imagine that there'd be Jews who would have taken their own lives rather than wait for it. That's taking Zionism seriously, of how long we have waited, what we have been through to have our own autonomy. And either this is something that is very real and a real shift in what it means to be a Jew, or it is an erosion of what it means to be a Jew. And these are the two sides on the extremes. Now, I usually like to live in the middle, and honestly, I live my life in the middle. I live in Teaneck. I'm not a radical Zionist. I'm not a radical anti-Zionist. But the seriousness, if for someone who is a student of Jewish history, which I am, that Zionism calls for us, the fact that I am living in New Jersey when we have a Jewish state, and not to feel that there is a strong possibility that I am going to be criticized the same way that those in Gullah's Bavel didn't return back to Eretz Yisrael during Bayis Sheni. You know, these are issues that stand in the highest quarters of the world, and I think about them. I rarely talk about them. They stay in the recesses of my heart. They relate in many ways to what Sabbateanism was about, what Messianism was about. The writings of Gershom Scholem have influenced me a great deal about taking Zionism seriously. He took Zionism very seriously as a movement, as a possibility. And anytime I see strife, fighting, difficulty in Eretz Yisrael, I'm reminded, whatever you want to say, whatever side you're on, you have to take Zionism seriously.
Well, you said you were not the right person to answer this, but you were exactly the right person to answer this. So thank you for that. That was really amazing. Want to take the next?
Yeah.